Did you like that?
I did. I had to hum along.
I like the bass in it.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is Classic Vinyl Podcast, and we're on to episode of our Meet the Beatles series. We're going to do I Feel Fine, and She's a Woman today. She's telling all the world about us, right?
Oh, she's telling all the world about me, and I feel fine. He's okay with that.
So I'm Justin.
And I'm Tyler.
And we're here once again for the Meet the Beatles series. And like I stated, this is episode 8. And of course, we don't really go into the Beatles history because if you've listened to us before or know anything about John, Paul, George, and Ringo out of Liverpool, they are my favorite band and what I consider to be the greatest band of all time.
And for me, this episode is a 50-50. I have heard one of these songs extensively. The other one, it's a first time for me.
And of course, that was going to be my next question, but I'm sure you have heard I Feel Fine and you have not heard She's a Woman.
That's exactly right. Both sides of the same single.
Listen to them both twice.
And I had heard one over and over and over again. The other side, I guess nobody ever flipped over the record for me.
It could be. It is kind of a hidden gem. The funny thing about She's a Woman, I think I remember in 95 when they come out with the anthology, I remember hearing this song. And I think at the time I didn't have the past masters, and this obviously never hit an album. So I just simply hadn't heard the song, and I really went searching for it. She's a Woman was one of the ones I was really looking for.
Kind of lost to history, huh?
Well, I think anybody that lived through the time had heard the single and knew the song, but as the re-releases come out, it wasn't hitting any albums or anything. And so until 87, when they brought out the past masters, it was kind of lost, and it wasn't really common when you don't find it on a lot of the greatest hits and it's not on an album. So it was kind of hard to find, but do you want to get to the song review?
I do.
And now it's time for the song review.
So of course we're going to do the Beatles, I Feel Fine, and the B-side, She's a Woman, and we'll do I Feel Fine first. Let me give you a little history on this song. It was released as a single on November 23rd, 1964 in the U.S. and November 27th, 1964 in the UK. I don't know why sometimes they released them on different days, especially early here in the US, but not in their home country. Kind of strange. But,
that is strange.
But the B-side of I Feel Fine, of course, was She's a Woman. Now, I Feel Fine was written by Lennon and McCartney. That's who it's credited to, but this is mainly a John Lennon composition. Lead vocal on this is by John Lennon. You've got McCartney and Harrison both on harmonies on this one. It was recorded at EMI Studios, now known as Abbey Road Studios in London, and produced by George Martin. Now, this song was recorded during the sessions for their Beatles for Sale album, which will be our next episode, is when we get into that album. And the same day as the songs Kansas City, Hey, 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 Mr. Moonlight, I'll Follow the Sun, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, and Rock and Roll Music. The song I Feel Fine was recorded in 9 takes, which is kind of crazy considering how things are recorded nowadays, and that was quite a few for them.
Yeah, I wonder how many of those takes was just to get that reverberation on the first chord.
I don't know, kind of interesting. I'm not sure the history of that, but the guitar riff itself that opens up the song after that feedback was influenced by a record called Watch Your Step that was by Bobby Parker. And I haven't listened to that recently, so I'm not quite sure how the influence sits. We probably should have, but I didn't.
I don't know anything about that one.
So this is one of the singles that was released only as a single in the UK, which the Beatles were well known for, but was featured on the Beatles US album, Beatles 65. And that album actually has a little bit different mix. I've got that record, but we didn't listen to that different mix today. And I know a lot of people that grew up on those enjoy them. Enjoy the lineup of the songs. I'm just more into their original UK releases because that's what I grew up on.
Sure.
But it's kind of funny because when you're listening to an album, you always know the next song coming up. But mine are based on the UK albums, and a lot of people that live through the 60s and live through these US album releases see it a different way. But one thing about the US releases is, especially the early ones, they have a lot of reverb and echoey sound to them that I don't really enjoy that much. Some people, that's what they like, and that's what they grew up on, so I get it. So this can also be found on Past Masters and a collection of Beatles oldies, and along with live versions on both Live at the BBC 1 and 2, if you want to hear different versions of it. This is well known for being the first recording that included the use of feedback, at least on purpose, and it was inspired by Lennon leaning his guitar against the amplifier, which anybody that plays guitar knows that feedback sound, and after he heard that, he wanted George Martin to put it on a record.
You know, anybody that knows John Lennon knows that he loved playing with sound.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I think a lot of people that got these records thought it was an accident or they had a bad recording because of that feedback, because it wasn't something you did in recorded music.
Yeah, eventually John Lennon would go on to make only records of compilations of noise.
But that first note is played by McCartney's Hofner bass on this. And a lot of people think, you know, this song has Lennon's Rickenbacker on it, but it actually is Lennon playing his J160E Gibson electric acoustic, and George Harrison's playing his Gretsch Tennessean guitar on this song. Got a pretty good sound out of his acoustic electric on this.
I'd say.
So the song reached number one pretty much everywhere. US, UK, Canada, other countries including Ireland, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, and Sweden. I mean, it was a big hit for them. So this is the sixth single for the band in 1964 to hit number one. And they had one more single that hit number one this year for a total of 7, which is still a record for a recording artist to this day.
Oh, yeah. You just don't see that anymore.
So the single is certified gold in USA by the RIAA with over 1 million copies sold here. And there was also over 1 million copies sold in the UK. It's the 5th highest selling single of the 1960s overall, and still the 53rd best single of all time.
I wonder how those albums were distributed. I don't think they were all bought by my mom.
I highly doubt that. They also filmed 2 promotional films for this song for the Top of the Pops.
Okay, so those promotional films, are they kind of just like a commercial that advertises the Top of the Pops?
Yeah, it was basically a way for them to film a music video and promote their single without having to go there to promote it.
Oh.
You know, the beginning of music video, really.
Clever.
Yeah. And the song lyrics on this, we won't get too detailed in them because I know Tyler will, because he always dissects them, but they're pretty straightforward if you can listen to them. So
there's nothing to dissect here. It is pretty dang straightforward.
Yeah. So after listening to I Feel Fine, this is one you've heard before, but sitting down with the purpose of dissecting it and reviewing it, what is your thoughts on this song?
It's a really cute little puppy love song. This guy's got a girlfriend, and she loves him, he loves her, and she tells everybody how great he is and how he's always giving her things, and he's okay with that. Is he just okay with it, or is he feeling fine in the other sense of the term fine, as in like the top shelf fine wine kind of fine?
Or is he saying it sarcastically? I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean,
just fine.
It could go any of those ways. So, because I mean, yeah, just kind of like what was the song? Jesus is just all right, but just all right back then went, oh, it was the tops.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe it's a situation like that. But man, it's a fun little song to listen to, and you're right about the lyrics. They're so straightforward. There's not really much reason in going over them too much. But boy, the instruments, this is your classic quintessential Beatles music. This is why people love the Beatles. It's a fun song. Everybody's doing an excellent job. Whatever instrument they're playing it perfectly. One thing that I took note of is Ringo. He's got a lot of toys in the percussion era, or the percussion area on this song, and he's all over the place with playing his cymbals, playing the drums, and you just get a whole bunch of different sounds that come from percussion. And I like that. I really like, picking out some different things from the drums and some different sounds that you don't normally get in a lot of this era's music. And I like that. I mean, you can get a little bit of a glimpse or a little bit of foreshadowing into John Lennon going into making a wall of sound and out of a bunch of noises and calling that music, but it's still music. This is orchestrated. It's nice. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's kind of interesting because we listened to the original version, the original UK version, and then we listened to the 2023 remix. The difference being on the 2023 remix is the bass and the drums are quite a bit heavier, and I think they've done that on purpose, maybe to appeal to a new generation that likes the heavier, thicker sound. But this song, all in all, it is quintessential Beatles for the time, but you can see their progression where with the feedback that they want to put that in the song to do something different. Lyrics are still pretty straightforward. We don't get into them. I mean, here soon as the Beatles progress, the lyrics start getting much more advanced, obviously, especially when you get up to, let's say, Rubber Soul. By that point forward, they get really advanced. It is a kind of complex song, but easy at the same time. it's got one of the most recognizable intros of any song, let alone Beatles songs. It's a fun intro to play. And I really like the Lennon vocals in it. I mean, they're doubled like he always liked to do from early to late. He loved doing that, but he's got a good vocal in it. And what you said about Ringo's drumming, the drum beat on this is very funky.
Mm-hmm.
And the bass follows it as well. It's a good bass. I hear more of the drums than I do the bass on this one, but both of them in the 2023 remix are pretty strong. But it is all over the place, and it's not a standard beat. It's got that different funky feel to it, and that's something, to me, the bass and the drums in this is kind of what makes this song different.
You know, it's crazy for a song that's lyrics are so straightforward and so basic and simple, just how all over the place it is with the instruments.
Yeah. The guitar's decent in it. When you get into, I love the harmonies from the guys. When you get into the I'm So Glad section, they've got really good harmonies. I mean, that goes without saying with the Beatles. That's one of their strongest points. But good little guitar solo in the middle from George on his Gretsch Tennessean guitar. Paul at the end, you can kind of hear, you can especially hear it on the new version, the 2023 remix, but there's kind of like a barking sound from Paul at the end that they left in. And check that on the 2023 remix because it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is for sure.
But a good song, I think the only thing it suffers for me a little bit is it is one of those that does get a lot of play. And so that brings us on to the next song, B-side She's a Woman, which is kind of the opposite of that song. This is a song not many people hear unless you're listening to, say, the Beatles channel on Sirius or you're a serious Beatles fan. This is a completely polar opposite song.
Is it because it's a bit more adult themed?
I think it's adult themed, but it's also raw. This song has a very raw feeling to me, almost kind of pushing you towards what the Beatles sound like live.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this song appealed to me then, and it still does now. And I don't hear it as often because just traveling in the car, or if you have playlists on Spotify or whatever, this song just doesn't come up a lot. And I really enjoy this song. Let me give you a little bit of history on this song. So this one was released obviously the same day, November 23rd of 1964 in the US and November 27th, 1964 in the UK. It was the B-side of I Feel Fine. This one was also credited to Lennon and McCartney, but this one, unlike the other one, is mainly a McCartney composition. You've got the lead vocal by Paul McCartney on this one, and this is one of Paul McCartney's early attempts to write a bluesy little number in the style of Little Richard, who he absolutely adored at the time. And we've talked about that before. Paul was into writing songs and wanted to sound like Little Richard.
Yeah, he loved those bluesy songs.
Yeah, and I would have to say that I don't know how well he does sounding like Little Richard, but he does an amazing job of trying to. The sound you get from his voice is, I think, one of the strongest things on this song.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely inspired by Little Richard, but not imitating him.
Yeah, and it's Paul McCartney is the guy of a million voices. He can do different things with his voice. You wouldn't even think it was the same singer unless you really know the Beatles, and that's what's really interesting about him.
I think you get a little bit more of imitation of Little Richard when they did Long Tall Sally.
Yeah, that's definitely an imitation more. This one's more Paul.
Yeah.
So this one was also recorded at EMI Studios in London and produced by George Martin. This one was recorded on October 8th of 1964, and I just find that funny that a month and a half later this song's produced and released,
Wow.
So this one was actually recorded the same day Paul McCartney wrote it. So Paul McCartney has stated that the idea for this song came to him while walking around a district in London called St. John's Wood, which he's he's mentioned many a time. But this one was also recorded during the Beatles for Sale album sessions. It was recorded in 7 takes. One interesting thing about this song is George Harrison had nothing to do with the recording of the original rhythm track of this song. He recorded and overdubbed his guitar later that same day. So Paul McCartney also added piano, and Ringo Starr recorded the sound of a metal shaker after the fact as well. Probably that night, the same time George recorded his guitar, and that was overdubbed on. So on this song, you do have Lennon playing his Rickenbacker 325 Capri, and Harrison plays his Gretsch Country Gentleman guitar on this song. Although this one was a standalone single as well, this song was included on the U.S. albums Beatles 65, just like I Feel Fine. It can also be found on Past Masters, and there's also live versions on Live at the BBC, Live at the Hollywood Bowl, and Anthology number 2, if you want to hear some different versions of this one. The B-side reached number 4 in the U.S. and number 18 in Canada. The B-side did not chart in the U.K. for some reason. The lyrics contain the band's first reference to marijuana, which Paul McCartney and John Lennon both stated and said they were happy to get away with it, but Turn Me On, which was a very, not referred to as sexually all the time, but...
Yeah, that surprises me.
Yeah, Turn Me On. So it's kind of a double entendre with this song because he's singing about the girl, right? So Turn Me On can be referring to the girl, and it can mean both things, but Lennon and McCartney both stated that was actually a reference to marijuana.
Interesting.
And supposedly that was John Lennon's line, which that kind of stuff is what he liked to throw in there just to be a little spicy at the time.
Yeah. Which that's also what makes me wonder if they didn't get as much radio play, because this seems pretty adult themed.
It kind of is, especially if you put yourself in the shoes of the times, right? And this is another song where the lyrics, when you're saying adult themed, the lyrics are pretty straightforward in this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess other than the Turn Me On lyric, which has 2 meanings, but you obviously stated this is a song you have never heard, so you heard it twice today before we recorded. So what are your thoughts on She's a Woman after hearing it?
This song is a very different sound from side A. I gotta say. And yet what's so crazy to me is that this is like Salt and Pepper, and that you've got this cute little sweet puppy love song on side A, and then you flip it over and you've got this bluesy, that's, real down and dirty kind of sounding song where he's singing about he's in love with this girl. She doesn't, give him a lot of presents. That's just not really her style. It's not because she's poor. She's not much of a gift giver.
Do you think the doesn't give me many presents? Do you think that's a euphemism for something?
I'm not sure, because then he gets into like euphemisms, and it seems, is it euphemisms? Because it's almost overtly sexual. The things that he's singing about, that, she turns him on and gives him all these other things that a woman gives. She's a woman. She's not a girl.
Yeah, and the song has that very steady, heavy beat. Is very sexual in itself to me.
It really is. This is the tune that they have is your very typical 1960s kind of funk rock and roll. But even then, it got that bluesy feel to it. So all the other instruments together match with that beat and make it, this sounds like a Little Richard style song, in that it's a fun, high rolling blues kind of song, but it's a grown up song. This is about grown up love. And, people think, the singer, I should say, is saying that, well, people think that she's just fooling him or fooling around with him, not taking this too seriously. And he's like, no, she loves me, and she shows me that she loves me in other ways, not by giving me gifts, but by giving me other things. This song, for being a first timer on to hear it, this is not your typical Beatles, but this would go very comfortably on an album alongside Long Tall Sally, with that same style. So what are your thoughts on this one, Justin?
Well, it's not too long after Long Tall Sally, obviously, but I really love the raw nature of this song and how heavy-hitting that guitar is on the Rickenbacker that John Lennon's playing, because it's just that steady beat throughout. The opening guitar and the steady beat throughout, that choppy, the way Lennon plays everything choppy. And sometimes that's a way you can kind of tell the difference between him and Harrison, is because Harrison was more refined and could hit those notes better, and I think Lennon was really tough on his guitars. He didn't have a problem beating them up a little bit. I think the McCartney vocal on this is absolutely amazing. This kind of makes me, I said it earlier, but this song feels live and raw, but it also does have grown-up lyrics, especially for the time. It's a complete opposite. I think they made the right decision with I Feel Fine as being the lead single. I mean, it hit number 1 everywhere, and it makes sense because it is more marketable, I think. And this is kind of the gem that real fans will really like, but it's not going to upset anybody otherwise. I said it when I first heard this song, I had to go searching for it because I'm like, where do you find that song? And this is in the mid-90s when I was just beginning to be a Beatles fan. I knew the hits and things, but when I'd hear songs like, where do you get that? I love that song. And I still feel that way about this song because the drums are mixed a little bit in the background. The bass is strong. It's got a decent little guitar solo in it. And I really like on the fade out, Paul McCartney fades out was saying over and over, she's a woman. He's identifying her sexual identity, or he's at least just telling you she's a woman.
Yeah.
Like you said, she's not a little girl. She's not a girl. She is a full-blown woman.
Yeah, that knows how to please a man, and that is the mark of a woman, not a girl.
I think the two strongest things in this song are obviously the vocals. I love when McCartney sings like this, and the guitar from Lennon on this, just how it's so choppy and raw. I think it's kind of good. It shows, I Feel Fine. They're experimental with feedback and being a little more commercial with the song to hit the charts. And then they do something like this that is very raw, deep down and bluesy and dirty. And I'd like the two playing off of each other that way. Do you want to get the song rating?
Let's rate it.
Song rating.
All right, if this is your first episode, we have a pretty simple scale, 0 to 10. 10 being the best. For the first song, I Feel Fine, I'm going to throw that one at a 9. I mean, this is really a master work of art that's aged very well. This is the kind of Beatles that there's a reason why they play it so often on classic rock stations and all soft rock stations. This is a cute little happy love song. It's real sweet puppy love. And that's what we love to see. Where do you put this one?
So keep in mind, I rate the Beatles not basically on everyone else, with them being my favorite band. I rate them based on themselves on a sliding scale. I Feel Fine. I suffer a little bit from hearing it too much. I rate it's a very, very strong song. I rate it an 8.5 on the Beatles sliding scale. So I do the Beatles a little bit different than I do everybody else. I would probably rate it a little higher if I was comparing it to other songs outside the Beatles canon, but I'm a tad bit biased when it comes to the Beatles, so I have to rate their songs on a sliding scale. So after listening to She's a Woman, what do you rate that one?
So She's a Woman, I don't throw that one quite as high. It's a really good song, but it didn't age as well as the A side. So I put this one at a 7. It's still really well done. You can tell that the Beatles are enjoying themselves, having a good time. But I get this one a little bit lower. It's just not your best Beatles work, but it's still really good. I mean, that 7 is a very strong 7. Where do you put this one?
That's where we differ a little bit, and a lot of that becomes because of how much these get as far as playing time. But this song is one I've always loved. I love the rawness of it, and when you say it hasn't aged as well, I can kind of see that, but I think on purpose this song was made to be a raw, live type of performance in the studio. I rate this song a 9. I love She's a Woman. I think it's a very strong song. And you're not going to convince me off that one, because this is a very good song to me.
I'm not going to try to convince you off of it. It's a good song. It's just, it's not my style.
Yeah, and I have a little history with it because I remember just hearing it and like, what is that? I got to find it. And it was hard to find at the time because you didn't have the internet where you could go throw something down. I remember reading the credits on Anthology and She's a Woman. Okay, now where do I find that song? You can't just go to YouTube.
And it's really impressive. Like hearing the background of that one, not the background in the song, but like the story behind it, that Paul McCartney had written that one the same day. I mean, he tossed the idea around, but he wrote it the same day they recorded it.
I think that's kind of what's special about it. It's funny that some music, there's so many days and years even put into them, and thousands of takes and overdubs and things like that. And some of these songs from the 60s, not just the Beatles, but any bands that they write the song, they go put it down in the studio in a few takes, they have it recorded and released and within a week or whatever it is. And, those songs are still to this day played on the radio. So there's something to be said about that.
Yeah, for sure. You guys need to go out there and listen to this Salt and Pepper single of the A side and B side of the I Feel Fine juxtaposed against She's a Woman.
So that concludes our episode on our Meet the Beatles series, I Feel Fine and She's a Woman. Send us an email at classicvinylpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us what you think, what we got wrong, what we got right. But until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you so much for listening to Classic Vinyl Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Classic Vinyl Podcast for updates, and also share us with your music-loving friends.